Hi, welcome. My name is Ben Fuchs. I'm the founder of Fuchs Financial, and today we're going to talk about the best age to claim Social Security. And by the way, that is one of the arguments that people have all the time, and it is contentious. Some people believe you should take it right at 62 immediately, as soon as you possibly can. Other people believe that you should wait until 70, so that you can wait and get the highest income amount for as long as you might live, which is wonderful. The old joke goes that you tell me when you're going to die, and I can tell you when to take Social Security. But since we can't do that, we have to figure out a few more factors to determine when we should actually take it. So, one of the things that I do with my clients is that we like to define when it's important, what their goals are. And so, by determining what their goals are, we're going to figure out how and when they should take Social Security. So, basic questions that you should have answered, or at least be asking. Is it a goal for you to preserve your own savings so that you can pass on the money that you've saved to the next generation? Or is that really not a big concern for you? Are you more worried about making sure that your money will last for the rest of your life? And if there's something left over, great, well, they can have it. Right? So that's question number one. Question number two, is it a goal for you to minimize taxation before you're forced to take required distributions? So people that have been really good savers, that have been saving their whole lives, have built up a fair amount of money in their IRAs and their 401ks, and they're going to be forced to take that at 72, called required minimum distributions. They're going to be forced to take it, forced to be taxed on that money, and depending on their other income, it could actually raise their tax bracket. So it's something to be wary of, and Social Security plays a big part in their overall taxation. So if it's one of the goals for you to really minimize taxation, it might determine when you actually take Social Security. Three, will Social Security be your main source of income in retirement? And if you don't have a lot of other savings and Social Security is going to be the main thing that you're relying on, it's definitely going to change when to take Social Security, right? How long should you work? How long should you hold off? Should I just take it as soon as I can? Or again, should I just wait as long as I possibly can? And we're going to get into that in a little bit, and I'll tell you why. And number four, and this is kind of important, does your family have longevity? Right? Do you have any significant health problems? These are things that are going to obviously impact when to take it. Personal views, my grandmother is 99. She will, hopefully, knock on wood, turn 100 in June this year. Of course, my grandfather passed away at 58, so I have no idea where I stand on the spectrum. But if you have a lot of family that's long-lived, you're likely going to want to wait a little bit longer to take it. But again, we can go into the why and the how and go into some details a little bit later. Okay, so if your goal is to pass as much money as you can to the next generation, then typically you want to take Social Security as soon as you have retired, or as soon as you've turned full retirement age, whichever is sooner. Why? Great question. Thank you for asking. Because in this scenario, if both you and your spouse or just you pass on, obviously you cannot pass on that Social Security to your children. So you don't want to spend down your own assets. You want to spend down the assets that you don't have any control over. So Social Security is obviously one of those assets. Also, it allows your investments to continue to grow on their own if you're not taking all of the money from them. For example, let's say that at your full retirement age, let's say at 66, you would get $2,500 a month. Well, that equates to $30,000 a year. By taking that $30,000 a year income, you are taking it from Social Security instead of pulling it from your own investments. It allows your investments to continue to grow, to be stable, and to not put so much strain on your portfolio where you could probably generate the additional money that you would need on top of Social Security and still allow the other investments to grow. If your goal is to minimize taxation in retirement, you may want to look at doing Roth conversions before you hit your required minimum distributions. It's something that you should look at and at least discuss with your financial advisor before taking Social Security. Why? Great question. Thank you for asking. Because when you take Social Security, that's a stream of income that you cannot turn off. Right? I meet a lot of people that retire at 64, 65, 66. They've taken their Social Security. They paid almost no taxes until they turn 70 and a half or 72 now with the new law. And they're forced to take required distributions. And they have to take a lot more money than they ever expected having to take, which means that they push their tax bracket to a whole new level, which is kind of like a big domino effect. And I can definitely go into more in that another time, but the whole concept, the whole understanding of taxation of your Social Security is that if you are under a certain income level, and again, another video I can definitely get into the details on the taxation of Social Security, but if you're under a certain income level, you're not taxed at all on your Social Security, or you're only partially taxed on it. But all of a sudden, when you start adding additional income from other sources, that is going to have a big effect on how much taxes you're paying overall. And so, if you are considering doing a systematic Roth conversion plan, you want to look at doing that prior to taking Social Security, because once you've started taking it, you really can't turn it off. And you'll be adding, again, in the case before, we had $2,500 a month in Social Security income, then you're adding an additional $30,000 a year in Social Security income on top of the amount that you want to convert, meaning that you're allowing yourself to convert less money in that specific tax bracket. If Social Security is going to be your main source of income in retirement, which it is for a lot of people, then I would say that 99 times out of 100, maybe a little less, you want to wait as long as you possibly can to take Social Security. A couple things happen. When your main source of income is going to be Social Security, you can't take as much risk in your other investments. Typically, that means that your other investments have to be safer, which by design means they're probably getting a lower rate of return than you would be getting from Social Security. The increase in Social Security from full retirement age to 70 is 8% a year. And if you have your money in safe investments, you're probably not getting that. So it might even be better for you to spend down a little bit of money that you have in the bank to preserve your Social Security and to allow you to get a higher income, pension, whatever you want to call Social Security when you're relying on that money. Now, a lot of advisors in your situation would advocate taking Social Security either as soon as you can or as soon as you hit full retirement age so that you can save that extra money. Why don't I advocate for that? Glad you asked. Because typically, you know yourself better than I know you. I'm just talking to a camera. But I'm going to assume that if you haven't been a great saver your whole life, you're probably not going to start right now. And so it may be easier for you to simply rely on having more income every month than saving now and hoping that you'll have more down the road. Because the likelihood of you getting an additional 8% per year on your investments is pretty minimal. So I don't always disagree with other financial advisors, but in this situation, I do tend to have a slight disagreement. Also keep in mind that if you were looking at $2,500 a month at 67, if you waited till 70, you would get $3,100. So an additional $600 a month, or give or take $7,200 a year. Now, you know, the math is the math. It takes 10 to 12 years usually to catch up for waiting any distance of time. But the other fact is that if you don't need that money now, but you know that you will benefit from having an extra $7,000 a year, then take it, right? Then just be patient, wait to take Social Security, and use that money for the rest of your life like it was designed to be used. Because Social Security ultimately is insurance. We want to ensure that you have the best lifestyle for as long as you possibly can. And then the fourth question is, does your family have longevity, or are there significant health issues? And really, I mean, I know that the asking of that question kind of gives you the answer, right? If you are a long-lived family, probably makes sense for you to wait a little bit to take Social Security. If you have significant health problems, or you've had significant health problems in your family, then that might be a reason why you want to take it a little bit earlier. But again, these are the things that you want to think about. And I ask them, not because I don't think you can't answer that on your own, because a lot of times people just don't think about that before they take Social Security, right? So this should be part of a well thought out process and plan. And that's the overall goal, right? When you look at your income in retirement, Social Security is usually the base of that, right? So what am I getting from Social Security? Am I getting anything from a pension? And then what have I saved, right? Those are the things that are going to allow me to get income in retirement. And we want to make sure that the other income that you have is able to fill in the gap between what you're getting from Social Security and then the other sources of income and the lifestyle that you want to lead, right? But we want to do that in a well thought out way. I remember probably 5, 6, maybe 7 years ago, a guy, we'll call him John, he came into my office just so mad about Social Security. He was like 64 at the time. He started taking Social Security at 62 because everyone told him that he needed to take it at 62. But the problem was, John was still working and he was still making about $70,000 a year. And he needed to work because he wanted to continue to contribute to his retirement plan. But he just heard that he should take Social Security as soon as he could, and so he did. The problem was, he didn't get to collect any of his Social Security. So for 2021, you can make $18,960 a year and be under your full retirement age and still receive all of your benefits. But you lose $1 for every, you don't lose, they withhold $1 for every two that you make over that limit. Well, back then, the limit was less, but even today, working $70,000, making $70,000 a year, he'd be way over that limit. He would be giving back all of the Social Security that he was earning. And we created a little pamphlet that you're welcome to download after this. We go into way more detail on all the examples that we've given with numbers and specifics, just because we feel like that's going to help out a lot of our anybody that's going to need this pamphlet. But in John's situation, he had no business taking Social Security at 62. It made 0 sense for him to do it. He just did it because that's what everybody around him told him. And when I first met him, at that time, we could do something called a file and suspend. So at that time, we suspended his Social Security and was able to grow and accrue at a much higher rate, obviously, than what he was getting from regular inflation. And Social Security has a funny rule that they say that money you don't actually lose, it goes back into the equation of how much money you get, but it's not the same. And it doesn't grow at 5, 6, 7, 8% a year like the other Social Security would if it was left alone. So that's kind of a cautionary tale. Don't just take it at 62 because people tell you to do. See if it actually makes sense for you. Just wanted to thank you very much for watching the video. If you liked it, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out on Facebook. Also, in the description below, we have a link to a pamphlet that goes into more detail. We get into a few more numbers, we get into a few more details on all the things that we talked about today. But we hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you again.